It seems we are well and truly back into the thick of things with E5 as one day later we have another post from the developers. And this time it is again looking at Rossback, but some of it is feedback on what we have said regarding some of the features that have been shared with us. So, for example, Complacency is the first one. Before I get into it though, video that I posted yesterday, I guess I gave a little bit of a too more extreme title, saying that these changes would revive E5, and some people had some issue with that. I think you're probably right. I think E5 isn't dead. Obviously, doesn't need reviving. Um, Revitalize maybe would have been a better word, but you know, YouTube does YouTube things, and you're kind of forced to do catchy titles. I know it sucks, but I don't know. I'm just trying to do my best here. Anyway, let us get into this Tinto talk, and hopefully the title of this video is not sensationalist. I will try to do better. Anyway, Complacency. They have heard complaints and they've reworked it to be more of a mechanic that hooks into some disasters. During some disasters, you'll also get the complacency effects applied to you as well, but primarily, complacency is used to trigger the reworked Decline of Empires disaster, which now requires a country to get to 75% complacency. Okay, so some disasters you get the effects, but complacency is a number. I guess it doesn't have effects on it, just in general. But when you get to a high enough level, then you get a disaster, which will then give you the effects. Okay, I can see that being the case. That's fine. That's fine. I personally didn't have too much of an issue with it. And I know I might have been in a bit of a minority there. I did see a lot of people disagreeing with my takes, and whatever. You know what? We all have different opinions, right? So it's all good. What I did keep saying is that I would like to see what the average amount of complacency a country will generally experience during a game before I gave like final thoughts on whether I like this mechanic or not. Because if we're only ever experiencing like 20-30%, then I didn't really see the problem. I from my perspective, I thought people were looking at this number of negatives when you were at 100 complacency. Here, these, and thinking, oh my god, 50% research malice? That's crazy. Why would you do that? And it's like, no, that's when you were at 100 complacency. And I would posit that that's probably not going to be the case for most people. And if it is the fact that you get to 100 complacency, if you are there, then you're kind of so far ahead and completed and won the game that it's not really that much of an impact, in my opinion. But either way, now it is just that you have 75 complacency, the disasters, complacent decline, decline of magic heat, decline of Mali, and dissolution of Delhi will fire. So I wonder, does that mean that Delhi, Mali, and magic heat start with a bunch of complacency? That could be interesting. Going through every single country in the game and saying, okay, you start with this amount of complacency, and you start with this amount. I imagine that is a monumental task. So good luck to the dev who's had that assigned to them. Anyway, auto-joining Rebel Wars. One major complaint we've had with the EU5 has been the fact that rebels of your culture revolting in another country would automatically put you in a war. In Rossback, this is a normal call to arms. Instead, you can reject it if you so desire. If you honor it, then you'll become the war leader as well. That's cool. I like that a lot. I like that a hell of a lot. Especially, you know, becoming the war leader sounds great. It's basically another way of getting to war with a country. I can't think of too many places where this would apply for the very start of the game. I guess the Romans being called in against the Ottomans, as you know, they have a bunch of Greek pops. That I could see happening. But in more Western Europe, I don't see many places where that would happen. Obviously, it'd be something that could definitely happen later on during the game. But yeah, no, this is a really good change. Defensive leagues have been very static and impossible to break up from the outside. 100% agree. This was a huge issue for me in my Navarra game that I made a video for, release for. Now in 1.1, whenever a country is forced to cut all diplomatic ties with another country, they also have to leave common defensive leagues. Great change. Upgradable building alert. It's been hard to know where you have buildings that can be upgraded, especially when you have a large empire with many markets. So they've added an alert that takes you directly to the build screen with the can be upgraded filter selected for the target market. This is absolutely beautiful, though. If you think this is going to be this small of an alert, my guy, if you are a large empire with many markets and you research one tech, this alert will go off the bottom of your screen, wrap around, and then come back up the top. As soon as you unlock the next tier of marketplace. Oh god lord. Be interesting to see what that looks like. Music player, we're getting one. That's awesome. As requested, they now have a music player, so you can switch the songs you prefer, however you'd like. Hopefully they change the names of them in the file, so we just get, The Black Death, or Gloria Patri, or, what the song that's playing in the background now is called For the Lost Ones. It'd be nice, but also really good to have this. Coin laws, we learned a little bit about that already. While gold and silver give a default 100% contribution to inflation, the game now supports changes to that. So the Gold of Boer advance for Mali gives less inflation from gold production. Our new coin laws now use this as well, so if you play Sweden and use the copper coins policy, you'll get some inflation from your copper as well. What is most important with the coin laws, though, is that it decides which goods you'll use to make coins. So if you don't have access to enough gold in your market but lots of silver, you can switch to silver coins. I love that. That's really cool. Bohemia being like, what do you mean not enough gold? What do you mean not enough silver? I could choose both. Can I choose both? Is that possible? Yes, it is totally possible. Bohemia being like, yeah, I have no issue with this. But yeah, no, fantastic. Cultural opinion. While you could always get other countries to improve their culture's opinion of your own culture through diplomacy, you can never do something with how your culture views others. But in this update, you'll be able to change how your culture views other cultures from the culture view. Very nice. Annexation rework. First of all, they've now made it so that half of the annexation speed depends on your diplomatic spending, while also adding a few sources for speeding up and or slowing down the annexation speed. Also advances that speed up annexation progress as well. Well, this was already the case. Sometimes they were bugged, but sometimes they're nice. But yeah, having the diplomatic spending impact it was surprising when I learned that was not the case, so that makes sense. Removed counter-espionage impact from centralization versus decentralization, and instead, centralization makes you annex subjects faster, decentralization makes you annex them slower. Makes sense? I still, there was a time, though a brief window, where decentralization was like the absolute meta. I kind of feel like people are coming around to centralization once again being better. The era of subject spam seems to be somewhat ebbing. I think it's still definitely stronger in the early game, but it's not something that I want to keep long term, and definitely want to annex them and own the land directly as soon as I can afford to build a road over there. I mean, it depends on how big your empire is or how much coastline you have, that kind of thing. But I do prefer owning land directly rather than vassals. Colonial charters, though, there's a problem with the colonial charters in EU5 in that everything with them was look. I read this in my head wrong, which is why I started giggling there. I read this as everything with them was poop, because it kind of was. It was really they were bad. They were really quite terrible. Anyway, there were a problem with colonial charters in EU5 that everything with them was pop related, which meant that you had to send enough pops of your own primary culture and religion in a location to have it change ownership to you. This meant that if you competed with another country, it could continue forever. Also, I'm mixing up colonial charters with trade companies. Trade companies were poop. Colonial charters were fine. Anyway. Another problem was that you could not get minorities in the colonies, as pops needed to be primary culture to be tracked. For Rossback, they've now instead keeping track of how many pops have moved there, and when we've gotten enough, which depends on the population currently in the location, and the power projection advantage, it will become yours. Cool. Great change. Having the ability to send minorities over to the colonies, it was very silly, in my opinion, that, especially before, there was a change where pops just migrated from your home region, whatever region your capital was in. That was a change that happened relatively recently. But before that, when you were colonizing, you got to choose an individual province. So say as England, and I own all of the British Isles in this hypothetical campaign that I've been playing, I am going to send pops from Cornwall, right? Because there's too many Cornish people. I want to culture convert them to English. Might be nice to just get them over to the colonies. As soon as those Cornish people set foot on a boat, they became English. And when they arrived in the colonies, it was an English pop. That's no longer the case, which is obviously way more realistic. Having the pops that you send to the colonies be of the culture of the pop that got sent to the colonies. Just makes sense. So really good for a bit of accuracy there. Fantastic. Tomorrow looks like we're going to get another video talking about economy, food, and estates rework. Okay, Rospec is going to be way bigger than I had anticipated. There's one comment as well. With the upgradable buildings filter, can it be adjusted so that it only shows buildings that are upgradable and that you have the tech for? I mean, yeah, that's I feel like that's what it was showing. These buildings are, the stockade, you start with the ability to build castles, and I guess the dock is upgradable. Actually, I don't know what the dock is upgradable to. Either way. Yeah. I think this is great. I think this is great. I'm really looking forward to the coin laws. I think having a music player is going to be great. Complacency, like I say, I wasn't unhappy with it, but I'm happy with this too. So we'll see how it plays out. But considering, countries like Mali and Delhi are supposed to collapse relatively quickly into a campaign, they must start with a lot of complacency. So, yeah. Interesting to see how that plays out. Anyway, I would like to know your thoughts and opinions and feelings and all of that kind of good stuff, so please do leave them in the comment section below if you want to help me out. Also, click the subscribe button. Over the Christmas period, I stopped posting due to being sick, and the subscriber count kind of just like flatlined, which is a little bit sad for me, but you know what? Maybe if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, you could click it and make me happy. Anyway, thanks all for watching. I'll do one quick refresh. Yeah, there's no extra comments. I'll see you tomorrow for another video. Bye-bye.